Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and it's been a while since we've taken a journey through the Starmap together, so I figured we'd go ahead and dust off the series and take a trip to Banshee. Now, Banshee was first discovered in 2317, officially by Adeliz Dayan, who ended up spending her time working in the Fora system. Now, Fora was seeing a rapid expansion, and there were just flocks of workers that just kept coming in to help terraform the system. And like all workers spending their time away from home, they need to find a way to kill time. And many here actually decided to explore the system to see what they could end up coming up with. Now, this became such an interest, and there was a large enough contingent of workers that were taking up this pastime that they ended up establishing what was known as the MRAN Association, and officially ended up exploring the Fora system together. Now, while flying around that system, Dayan's ship picked up an unusual pocket of radiation, which got her curious enough to call in her friends from the association, but by the time they arrived at her location, she was gone. Now, assuming that she ended up jumping to a new system, they waited for her to return. However, that wait would end up just going unanswered, which got them really nervous and worried enough about their friend that they ended up calling out to the government and explained the situation. And then the military ended up dispatching a Pathfinder mission to go figure out what the heck happened. Now, during that process, they found what was likely getting Dayan's attention, and they ended up making the jump, entering into one of the most dangerous systems that we know about, being Banshee. At the heart of the Banshee system is a rapidly spinning blue-white neutron star. Now, this means that radiation is being spewed out through the system, enough in fact that the green zone in the system is actually fairly inhospitable to humans. And things like exiting your ship for space repairs or salvage or search and rescue missions can end up being deadly to anybody outside of the protection of their ship. And because of this, everyone's actually encouraged to do a detailed ship check prior to entering the system, because if you end up breaking down, you could be in a lot of trouble. But getting back to Dayan, she was never found. The assumption was that a flare or a massive radiation burst meant that, her life ended. But it's still likely that her ship is floating somewhere in this system, and you might end up being able to find that at some point. Now, the name Banshee was actually her nickname back when she played Seda Ball, so the system is named in her honor. The military had ended up deeming this system too dangerous for the general public, and they decided to sort of silence the announcement of its discovery, and ended up passing restrictions to prevent civilians from entering the system. Now, that decision ended up causing a bit of a fit back in more civilized space, based on Earth's overcrowding and nervous activists that were concerned that this ruling could cause government overreach in future systems once they were discovered. During an important case, the decision ended up being overturned. And not only did that judicial decision end up allowing people to enter Banshee, but it also is now the reason why no one's prevented from entering Vandal space, even though that's generally considered a pretty bad idea. Banshee 1 is a dwarf planet like many of the inner worlds we see, and while it does contain a lot of good minerals here that would be worth your time extracting, the proximity to the star means that it would be foolhardy to try and get at them. Banshee 2 is a planet with an iron core, and while there isn't much here for anyone, there is an interesting fact that during the Mesa regime, several sections of the planet's irradiated surface were all removed. Now, all documents from this time had no mention of what happened here or what the purpose was, and that mystery ends up still remaining to this day. Banshee 3 is known as Lorona, and it's really become best known for the massive amount of resources that make this place such a vital part of the UEE supply lines. While it was known very early that there were vast resources, it was impossible with the technology of that day to survive that extraction process. However, the engines of war that were kickstarted during the First Teveran War, a company called UPARQ, or UPARQ, was developing technology that could end up collecting solar radiation for weaponization. But that technology ended up finding new purpose in Banshee. Because while the weapon never ended up working, this technology turned into what would become autonomous drilling rigs, capable of accessing the needed goals and making sure that you could get to those minerals below the surface. Now, on top of that, the tunnels drilled by these giant platforms ended up creating subterranean habitats where humans could actually survive. Now, in these tunnels, the primary jobs were all mining related. And there are massive amounts of precious metals and carbon extracted that actually end up being used for the diamond-plated cockpit glass that we see on some lines of ships. Even though mining is the primary job here, the amount of resources extracted means that there's a lot of inhabitants here. They've accumulated a lot of wealth, meaning that we see activities and stores to help these people spend that money. And there's really developed a new sort of culture in these weird little subterranean cities. The capital of the planet is Caselli, which is I guess in one of the larger tunnel cities. And while there's a lot of tunnel cities, only some of them are actually welcoming to outsiders, so it's advised that you have a guide if you're not familiar with the layout. Banshee 4 is the last planet in the system, and it's an ice giant orbiting the outer edge of the system, and there were initially plans to turn this into a source of water for the system. However, it ended up failing in a big way, and not much else has taken place here since then. The Banshee system is really sort of a testament to the human will, and has a lot of interesting things going for it, so who's going to want to come here? Well, it's a dangerous place, because while it's a relatively connected system, there's a possibility that at any point the 5 jump points leading to Fora, Yulin, Garon, Lear, or Tamza could end up becoming unstable and shutting down based on the radiation, which could trap everybody here to just live out the rest of their lives in that system. But with that being said, I think there are options here for people who want to make some money. A system like this has very few agriculture options, so being able to use a hauler to bring food and water is going to be pretty important because you're going to be able to sell those essentials at a higher price than market value. I also see a big potential here for those of you with crucibles to come in and utilize the scarab portion of it to encase other ships needing repair, considering you'd be able to shield and work on them as compared to somebody just trying to EVA and die. I think that's really kind of an interesting option and something that opens up gameplay. Starfarers are probably going to be able to do some decent refueling here, since it doesn't seem that there's many locations for people to stop for a fill-up, not to mention the fact that you might end up being able to reuse those tanks to carry in water. And for those of you with prospectors, you might be able to land on a few of these planets where we know that there's resources and work on the surface, but we also know that the technology is sort of limited in how you can end up surviving that sort of work. So I wouldn't get your hopes up about that, but it is a potential. So there's a lot of possibilities here, and I think it's an absolutely interesting system despite being potentially deadly. Either way, coming here is going to probably be worth the trip at least once, albeit somewhat dangerous, but always exciting. So if you have other ideas on what you can do here, please put them in the comments. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned for a whole lot more content. Have a wonderful day, and take care.